The winners of the last 8 Premier League titles meet at Anfield this weekend as Liverpool host Manchester City in what is a must-win for both sides. This is Tactics Exposed Team Talk, and in this video we'll answer 3 tactical questions ahead of this Sunday's game with the Sun Sports tactical guru, Dean Scoggins. Dino, let's get straight into it with question number 1. Are Pep and Slot bringing back 2 up front?
I love this question, and thanks for the comments again. A few coming in on socials as well as YouTube this week. Now, someone who sent this in has been quite perceptive because both City and Liverpool are doing something different in the last few weeks. And you know me, I love to see a new tactic. And so it's gone away from City's kind of, it's almost 4-1, 4-1 with Haaland and Liverpool's 4-2-3-1. And what it's become straight away as we go to the tactics board here is 4-2-2-2. And I'll just move Liverpool for now because it makes it easier for me to explain against another team. But it's like the 6 on the dice here. And that's moving around across the field like that in that group of 6. So it's a very, very tight unit that's moving around. And that means 2 up. And in some games for Liverpool, that's been Ekitike and Salah. It's been Gakpo has played in there in a couple of games as well. And I'll come on to City in a moment. But that means you've got Szoboszlai and Wirtz. And then you've got McAllister and Gravenberch who are playing in those positions. So it's quite wild to look at, first of all. But what it is really, really positive about it is it's bringing these attacking players closer together. So all of a sudden, they're joining up better. So it doesn't mean they stay in that pattern when they've got the ball necessarily. They end up in a sort of shape like that. But you've still got these connections between players that mean you can get players forward. It also means you've got the protection of those 2 all the time. Whereas what has been happening with Liverpool sort of pre-Christmas and end of December, they were getting into a really attacking shape with that 5-man attacking shape that I like to talk about, and then one guy is getting left in that midfield area. And then as soon as they push the fullbacks on as well, then they're exposed here in that setup. So what that has done with the midfield is make sure that they've got that little bit of protection in there. But there are problems in this.
I was going to ask.
Okay, there are problems in this where if you're in that 6-man unit in there, if you like. And Manchester City are doing this as well. We'll come on to that in a second. But what that means is when you then try and attack through a fullback, let's say Frimpong is pushing up this side, inevitably Kirkes or Andy Robertson are going to push up that side. And then look at this space. Look at that space in there. And as I say, Manchester City have been doing this as well. So it's almost like Pep and Slot have got together here and had a little discussion about what's going to be our new fashionable formation for the second half of the season. And it is 4-2-2-2. So we'll just move City into that shape as well. And that's what City have been doing. So we could see the pair of them go toe to toe, in this game on Sunday. It could be wild, end to end, with fullbacks going up. You could end up with fullbacks meeting in this position here, and then look at these spaces here for that big cross-field diagonal direct pass.
It seems like that box formation is in vogue. I'm a Chelsea fan, I see it at my club, also at my club under Enzo Maresca, and you've talked about it a lot with Man United under Carrick, that diamond in midfield. Is that something that's coming back into fashion with all the top clubs?
I think you're bang on. I think what it is, and I've spoken about it in we were a bit Man United fan TV for a few weeks, guys. Sorry about that, but it's been so interesting with Man United, and that was one of the things we talked about a lot was those Carrick connections. So just to use the red counters of Liverpool fans for a second, that's a bit what Carrick has been trying to do, is get those little diamond shapes in there. And then you're absolutely correct about Chelsea. If we use the blue counters there for a second, Chelsea will they'll invert a fullback from one side to try and get a box in midfield, where most teams play a 3-man midfield like that. They'll try and outnumber in that area with a 4v3. So why are City and Liverpool doing this now is the big question, and that leads to a 2 up front conversation, okay? They're doing it for precisely that reason. Can you outnumber the opposition in a very, very narrow area of the field and you know you've got better footballers than most other teams. If you've got Florian Wirtz, you've got Rayan Cherki, you've got players like that, Phil Foden, Bernardo Silva in those areas, Mo Salah, you're going to be better technically in those areas than those players. And also, these teams play against a lot of low blocks. So if I just for a second use Liverpool as the attacking team and move the blue counters into a low block here with a 4-5-1 type of formation, which they'll play against a lot. If they then use this 6 in here as a framework to play out of, then if this guy goes in there, he's causing a problem here, and you've still got another player. If this player goes in here, you're causing a problem here, you've still got another player. Inevitably, what will happen is another player will run in there and you've still got another one. Okay. So they're using that phase as a backup. And again, most importantly, trying to outnumber in that midfield area. One thing I would say about this, and the two up top, which we'll come on to in a couple of the other questions in a moment, is that it does leave you exposed at the other end. And also, if they match up against each other in this, does it just become a little bit of a stalemate? So maybe we'll see one of them blink this weekend. But what I've seen over the last couple of games and where City are doing it slightly better than Liverpool, Liverpool's press hasn't been great, okay? And one of the reasons for that, and I hate digging him out, but one of the reasons for that is Mo Salah. Mo Salah is not a good presser. He's not a good tracker. And what happens is Liverpool get back into a defensive shape, and again, in their box position. The other team will send players on to attack, and Mo Salah will hang around in this area here. And then the left-back thinks, I know, I'll go because he's not going to track me. So then they get in that attacking shape there and they're outnumbered in this area here. So that's becoming a problem because in a 4-2-2 shape, 4-2-2-2, sorry, don't miss the 2 out, this is the area of the field here on both sides that is most susceptible to danger. And if one of your forwards is not willing to track a defender when they carry the ball, and often it might not even be the left back, it might be that you have 3 centre backs here and this player beats him and then just goes, well, I'm going to carry. And then you're outnumbered again. And so that's been a problem for Liverpool. Where Man City have got it better is my favourite tactical player in the Premier League, Bernardo Silva. So when they have their 4-2-2 shape, what he's doing from the base of midfield when they're pressing is he's stepping through. So he's coming in to be an extra player in the press. And he knows he's got 2 players sitting there, plus his mate Rodri, obviously. But in that position there, against Tottenham, against Newcastle, they nicked the ball high up. Against Newcastle, that was Phil Foden who did it, but Bernardo Silva did it expertly against Spurs. Then, if they don't win the ball back in a counter press, he drops back in, makes his 2, and they're in the 4-2-2 shape again. So Bernardo makes it much more flexible for Manchester City. He's a doubt for the weekend. They'll be really hoping for this formation that he's around. But if they go toe-to-toe, these two, in this formation, it could be wild. It could be like knockout stuff.
Tactical innovation is the name of the game at the high level of the Premier League. Should we get into question number 2?
Absolutely.
Let's have a look. Oh, surely not. Are Man City better without Erling Haaland?
Well, I knew this was coming, obviously, because I prepare for these shows. But when I saw this question come in, I thought, no, of course not. Of course they're not. No team in the world is better without the best striker around. You know, Bayern Munich aren't going to be better without Harry Kane, are they? You know, Barca aren't going to be better without Lewandowski, and Man City aren't going to be better without Erling Haaland.
You know, this is a man who scored 20 Premier League goals
already. And look, he was hot until about November, wasn't he? And then there was a little drop-off. And I've got my stats man, Russ, thanks Russ, is in my ear because they're actually statistically better without him. And so they've won 65%-ish, I think it is, around about that mark when he plays. And it's around about 80% win rate when he doesn't play. So there's 2 ways of looking at that. And sorry, Russ, the stats aren't always right because he often doesn't play against the lesser opposition. Yes. So he gets rested in games where, like the Newcastle game in the Cup in the week, they were already through almost, and it was a good time to leave him out. So they win, that goes against his statistics, okay? However, if we go from a tactical standpoint, at the moment, I think they look a better unit without him. And that is wild to say. And so that's because of this new 4-2-2-2 shape. And if you imagine, I mean, it's been Marmoush in the last week or so since he's come back from AFCON, and then obviously they bought Semenyo in January. And so what they're doing here with this 4-2-2 shape is use wide forwards. So Semenyo goes there and Marmoush goes there. And if it was Haaland, you wouldn't want him in those positions, would you? No. But the reason that they're doing that, again, with potentially Foden, Cherky, Reinders in these positions, Bernardo or Nico, and then Rodri in those positions, you think, well, surely you've got to have your striker. But what this means is, what then they are doing is much better City than they were doing in the first half of the season, is almost inviting teams to come onto them in this area of the field. And then, inevitably, what teams do is push a fullback up and push a fullback up. And then all of a sudden, hang on a minute, you've got this. And yeah, you could say that if you had Haaland there, he's still 2 against 1, or they're 2 against 2 in here and he could be through. But the pattern of play is that you leave these wide forwards up, and then if a ball goes bounce past into midfield here, the next pass is bang, into Semenyo. Bang, into Marmoush, and then you're 1v1 attacking the corner of the boxes there. So in a tactical shape at the moment, I'm almost going to say it, they almost look better without Erling Haaland in that tactical shape. Are they going to leave him out at Anfield? I don't know. I mean, there's a possibility here that City could leave out Haaland because they fancy counter-attack at Anfield in this shape with Semenyo and Marmoush who bagged a couple again in midweek. And Liverpool could leave out Salah, and you could go into a Man City-Liverpool game where Haaland and Salah don't play. And the reason I say that for Liverpool, just quickly, is that Ekitike is going to play, absolutely going to play. And what you would, as I said, you've got Wirtz and Szoboszlai as the sort of flexible 10s in that shape, McAllister and Gravenberch, obviously. But if that was Gakpo instead of Salah, you might get the tracking back and the physicality a bit more against what could be a marauding Aït-Nouri or a ball-carrying Guéhi in that situation. So nothing against Salah from an attacking point of view, but in that shape, will they do it? I mean, that'll be intriguing. Cannot wait to see the team sheet. And of course, if they are left out, then those two coming on, it's fireworks later in the game as well.
Well, you brought up Mark Guéhi there, and I was actually at the Etihad to watch Man City beat Wolves, and Guéhi made his debut. Haaland was on bench for that game. And as much as the balls can come into Semenyo and Marmoush from the number 10s, it was Guéhi playing the long ball over the top into the wide forward areas, and Semenyo on the end of it should have scored a goal in that first half. So what you're saying is exactly right. And like you said, it would be astounding to see Pep leave out Erling Haaland for the game at Anfield, but it's a possibility, right?
Yeah, it is. It is a possibility. And the thing about these two teams over the last month is they've looked pretty ropey at the back, obviously Guéhi's made City better immediately by his signing, and City have had injuries there. Liverpool have had problems at the back as well. I think Liverpool have got a big decision to make on whether they go Frimpong and Kerkez, because again, you end up in that position there where you're flying forwards as fullbacks, and you're leaving those areas open. So do they go a little bit more pragmatic and pick somebody a little bit more defensive this side? I know Gomez has had injury problems as well, but Robertson would take the instruction and make it more of a 3 in attack, which would allow Frimpong to go, and you have a little bit of extra cover there in that position. But yeah, you're right about Guéhi's switches of play as well. Van Dijk switches play more than any other player in the Premier League. So this setup with the wingers pushing up and wide forwards makes for an intriguing encounter. And with the way they've both been at the back, I mean, Liverpool against Bournemouth were dreadful at the back. Man City could have conceded 3 or 4 against Newcastle in midweek as well. We could be for an absolute barnstormer.
One to keep your eye on. Question number 3. Why do Wirtz and Ekitike suddenly look like stars again? And this speaks to the upturn in form, particularly of Florian Wirtz, who struggled at the beginning of the season, and we're now seeing him play his best football. Look at Ekitike scoring goals for fun as well. Why are they suddenly looking like superstars again?
Well, one of the reasons, I think, to give Slot credit is because he's been moving this formation around to try and get the best out of Florian Wirtz. And look, those of us who watched him in the Bundesliga last year and saw him in those Champions League games, it was an absolute no-brainer as a Premier League signing. Brilliant player, and I was more excited about watching him in the Premier League than any other summer signing. It's fair to say it was a slow start, but in that slow start, because of the problems they had up front and Isak's injury and Ekitike did take a while to get going as well, And he was playing Wirtz over here and Salah over here. And they're in that sort of old school. I'm not even saying, can't believe I'm saying that about a 4-2-3-1, but they're in that position. That was the formation they were playing. And just very, very simplified version of that, he's isolated. He's a little bit away from everybody else. And he's then in a position over here where teams were doubling up, defenders were doubling up on him. And by the time he beats one of those, he's still not anywhere near the box. He's still not impacting the area of the field that he wants to impact. And so in this 4-2-2-2 shape, what that means is he's got a new pal. He's got Ekitike in form, and the way those two are working together, much like you just mentioned before about Carrick and those connections, all of a sudden, they're working as a pair. And it's been his upturn will show those stats, and the upturn in Wirtz since the beginning of December, and then the return since then. Ekitike and Wirtz are now the goals combined leaders in the Premier League. So we're not talking Son and Kane levels here, or Lampard and Drogba levels here just yet, but we are talking about a really, really exciting connection. And one thing that I noticed, particularly in Liverpool's last game, which was very, very exciting for them to look at, is how Wirtz looks for Ekitike. And not just here, where you'd expect them to look for each other. There was a lovely little pass for the assist for the Ekitike goal, cut-back goal the week before. But what happened is when the other team were pressing in that shape, and I won't do the City press, I'll do the shape that they were pressing, they get the ball in this area here for Kirkes, Liverpool. And Wirtz, who there was another midfielder there, Wirtz, who is close to Ekitike, sees this happening, this developing over here. And he thinks, I'm not involved here, but what I'm going to do is help my mate out. And he just goes over into this position here. This gives this player a real problem because he thinks, well, I don't want Wirtz getting it there and running at me. And so he goes out, obviously goes out. And then this player thinks, I want to go in here. And I think it was actually Szoboszlai who holds his position because, again, you don't want a ball pinged in here. And then Wirtz thinks, this is great. I'm causing a major problem here. He goes even further. And then the pass from Kirkes goes into Ekitike, 1v1. A bit like that PSG move against Arsenal with Dembele in the Champions League last year. And that's because now this understanding between these two is really starting to develop. And the way that they're crossing over, again, in that 4-2-2 shape, sometimes you're seeing these Liverpool forwards split wide because Ekitike, again, Thierry Henry style, wants to attack that area of the box. And then Wirtz goes in there and occupies that. And then all of a sudden you've given them a major problem in that area as well. So you can't win Premier League football matches by yourself. So full credit to these guys and to Slot. He's putting these two on the field as close together as possible. And then with their ability, let them play.